In this virtual recital, it's my great pleasure to introduce you to basso Andrew W. Potter in an exciting review of some of the greatest music ever written for basso. He's accompanied by pianist Susan Davies. This concert is generously underwritten by San Luis Obispo Guild Hall, where the recording took place on April 27, 2021. Our virtual recital series is presented free of charge through the generous underwriting of Opera San Luis Obispo's Board of Directors. Please consider supporting free programming like this by sending in a donation of any size to Opera San Luis Obispo, P.O. Box 14760, San Luis Obispo, California 93406. And finally, accessing the drop-down menu reveals quick links to various parts of the recital. Don't forget to click the subscribe button and enjoy the concert.
Verdammt in Herren Mäuse, unser Ohr in der Schock, und die Irren könnten rinnen, zitterräuschen und schlingen, und haschet euren Ohr, und haschet euren Ohr. Schleich nur dämmerlich und leise, ihr verdammten Herren Mäuse, unser Ohr schon entdeckt euch schon. Oh, wie will ich triumphieren, wenn sie euch verlieren, und sie herrschen still zu, und sie herrschen still zu. Hört will ich, springen und ein Freudenlied
Andrew, when did you know you had the lowest voice amongst your peers? What was that like growing up?
This is a really fun question, and I'll tell you why it's a fun question. I actually started singing when I was very, very young, not professionally, but I grew up with a very musical family. My father was a music teacher and a band director, and so I grew up singing, and I was a boy soprano, which is actually what I have found to be pretty common among my bass brethren, we'll say, out there. So I began as a boy soprano, had this super high voice, and my family was actually very responsible in that they continued to urge me to sing with that voice until my voice changed. So I was a boy soprano right up until like probably 11 years old, and then the voice started to shift downward just a bit, and it really happened quite quickly. I went from, singing these boy soprano roles to all of a sudden the voice dropping and really having a lower voice. By the time I was a junior in high school, I definitely had the lowest voice of any of my classmates. And it didn't strike me as anything fantastical, because by that time I wasn't singing anymore. And it wasn't until I was a senior in high school that a choir director was like, "Hey, we need a bass." And I'm like, "Oh, I guess I am a bass. Sure, I'll come and sing in the choir." And then from there, again, I went into college with the intent on pursuing instrumental music. And a voice teacher found me there and cajoled me into singing because he needed a bass. And so from there, it was really then that I realized, wow, my voice is actually kind of unique in that I am the lowest of the low. And I don't know, it was cool, it was fun, it was neat to kind of get out there, of course when you get to really sink your teeth into some of the things like Rachmaninoff's Vespers and things like that, it's really enjoyable. But it wasn't really until college that I realized that it was, oh man, I am quite a bit different.
Andrew, can you share what your daily warm-up routine is before practicing or performing repertoire?
Contrary to popular belief, basses don't actually just wake up and get ready to go. The low notes, yes, absolutely. But as you're hearing throughout this recital, and as you go and you listen to different operatic repertoire for a bass, or a basso cantante in my case, a lot of the rep does approach the highest points of the passaggio. And so one of the things that's really interesting is if you know any basses, they wake up in the morning sounding kind of like bullfrogs, right? So I wake up in the morning sounding like a bullfrog. The issue is getting my voice from there to a place where I can, cross these different passagios and get up to the top in a very clear, clean manner. There are a few different things. On a very high level, I always warm up the bottom first, and then the middle. And then when the middle passaggio is very solid and feels very secure, then I know I'm ready to warm up the top. So that's the high level approach. One of my favorite exercises actually from my teacher Ken Shaw is 1 3 5 6 5 3 1. So like a kind of an ah vowel. Ah. That 5 6 will tell you if the roll over the passaggio is ready to go. And so that's really a telltale for me. Oh, beauty, oh, handsomeness, goodness, would that I'd ne'er encountered you, would that I lived in my own world always, in that depravity to which I was born. There I found peace of a sort, there I established an order, such as reigns in air. But alas, alas, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness comprehends it and suffers. Oh, beauty, oh, handsomeness, goodness, would that I'd never seen you, would that I'd never seen you. Having seen you, what choice remains to me? Man, I'm doomed to annihilate you. I'm bound to your destruction. I will wipe you off the face of the earth, off the tiny floating fragment of earth, of the ship where fortune had led you. First I will trouble your happiness, I will mutilate and silence the body where you dwell. It shall hang from the yardarm, it shall fall into the depths of the sea, and all shall be as if nothing had been. Oh, you cannot escape. With hate and envy, I'm stronger than love. So may it be, so may it be. Oh, beauty, oh, handsomeness, goodness, you are surely in my power tonight. Nothing can defend you, nothing can defend you, nothing, nothing, nothing. So may it be. So may it be. cannot believe it. Now, that were torment to keen. I, John Claggett, master at arms upon the indomitable, have you in my power, and I will destroy you. I will destroy you.
Susan, how do you cope with a full day of performing?
Make sure you get lots of rest, if possible. I mean, I think the important thing is to be as prepared as possible so that when you actually get to the point where you're performing things, it isn't that difficult anymore. It's part of the learning process. It's the last stage of the learning process. Now you know it so well that you can just depend on your reflexes and just go.
Andrew, when do you know your work is ready to share with the public?
I have two answers. Number one, I feel like it's never ready for the public. That's the first thing. But no, the real answer, and I think what you're looking for, is when I feel it's authentic. When I approach a role or an aria, oftentimes when we're beginning to learn a piece of music, there's a learning curve. You know, there's the learning the language, the learning the rhythms and the notes, and then studying the character, understanding the subtext, understanding what it is we're saying, and then what it is we're saying. When I reach a point in a piece where I feel its authenticity, it's really at that point that I feel like it's ready to take it to the public.
Andrew, how do you mentally prepare for performing?
None of us get to a place where we don't feel those stage jitters. I wouldn't call it stage fright for me anymore. I've been doing this a while and I don't get those like intense, oh my gosh, nerves. But there is that like initial, like right before you cross the leg and enter the stage. Almost always I'll have this feeling of, do I know my words? It's like, and so in actuality, my routine has become quite simple, and that is that my mental preparedness means that the day of the performance is exactly like every other day. Because I sing every single day. No, whether I'm performing, whether I'm not, I'm going to practice each day. I'm going to make sure that the voice is ready to go every single day, unless it's a dark day and I'm particularly resting the voice. And so my mental preparation is really just telling my body that this is just any other day. Just like when you sing in your living room, you're just going to do it for a bunch of people today. That way, there is no like, oh, this is a big day. And then those nerves get a chance to creep in. It's actually for me quite the opposite. I focus very hard on making it just as routine a day as possible so that when I hit the stage, my body is responding in kind. My body is responding just like, okay, this is the same thing we do every single day.
Susan, there's solo playing and there's ensemble playing. How do you prepare for ensemble playing?
The learning process in some ways is the same and in some ways different. It's the same in that you still have to learn the notes, and so I mean the technical aspects of both are the same. But the part that's different is that while I'm learning an ensemble piece, I'm also looking at the other players' parts and trying to absorb what they're doing into what I'm doing. So it isn't just all about me, but it's incorporating the other people in the ensemble. So in that way, it's actually sometimes more difficult because it isn't just my decisions, but it's also going to involve other people.
Andrew, what's made this recital challenging?
So, first of all, it's been a delight. It hasn't really been a challenge. It's been just glorious to come here and sing with you. Susan, it was just an absolute delight to work with in an ensemble fashion. The biggest challenge for this was just having the one day between the performing weekend that I just had, having Monday off, and then showing up to do the full recital today. But we picked a great rep, and so it's been awesome. I mean, we were able to order things in such a fashion that it worked vocally.
Tell us a little bit about how you got into music.
My father was a pianist, and I used to hear him play. I mean, not professionally, but he played pretty well. He played Clair de Lune and things of that level. And I loved the way he played. He was very sensitive. It was beautiful playing. So I would listen to him a lot, and I really wanted to be able to do that, like my dad. And so I started getting lessons when I was 9, but I just took to it, really. And I remember at the beginning, I would always bring my music home and have my dad play it for me. And then it got to the point where he didn't feel comfortable doing that anymore. So that was kind of, but he was always one of my biggest fans.
Andrew, how did you select the repertoire for this recital?
On the comical side of things, but very truthful side of things, I just got done with this run of Trouble in Tahiti. We did 4 shows over 2 nights, and I only had 1 day between that and coming here and doing this. So I chose music that was very much in my bones, stuff that I've performed quite a lot, and stuff that I knew range-wise was a little less taxing. Sam sits very high for me. And so to do that 4 times over 2 nights is pretty exhausting. So I chose specifically rep that was just kind of home base for me vocally, that I knew that no matter what shape I was in, no matter how much fatigue I had coming from that show, I'd be able to do it. And this is repertoire that I've performed in many different places, many different recitals and concerts and things like that. So very excited to bring it here.
Che mai veggea nel penetrai più sacro di mia magione, presso lei che sposa e se dovrà non silva, due seduttori oscorgo. Entra che la miei figli cavalieri testimon dell'isonore dall'onca che si reca il suo Signore. Infelice e tu Giovingone
Andrew, today our audiences are experiencing you as an operatic bass. How much of your career brings you outside of opera, and what kind of genres do you find yourself working in?
When it comes to opera, there is always a shortage of good basses, but there's no shortage of bass roles. Every opera out there, for the most part, needs a bass. And so I've been very blessed to say pretty busy in that regard. I have gotten in, I've dabbled a bit in voiceover work here and there. I mean, if you really lurk online, you can find some voiceover reel demos and stuff. I've done a very mild bit of crossover, but other than that, just very limited theater experience, musical theater. It's really mostly been opera for me. As a bass, I stay pretty busy.
Some enchanted evening, you may see a stranger, you may see a stranger across a crowded room, and somehow you'll know even then, that somewhere you'll see enchanted evening, someone may be laughing, you may hear her laughing across a crowded room, and night after night, as strange as it seems, the sound of her laughter will sing in your dreams. Who can explain it? Who can tell you why? Fools give you reasons, wise men never try. Some enchanted evening, when you find your true love, when you feel her call you across a crowded room, and fly to her side and make her your own. For all of your life you may dream alone. Once you have found her, never let her go. Once you have found her, never let her go.
Andrew, how do you know that you're making a meaningful connection with your audience during a performance?
It really depends on what I am performing. And one of the things that's interesting about being a bass is oftentimes I have comic rep, but I also have very serious and dark rep, you know. So my connection with the audience is very different when singing Bluebeard's Castle, we'll say, versus singing Pasquale like I just did in Santa Barbara. So oftentimes for me, it really depends on the rep. It depends on what I'm looking to feel from the audience. To give you a couple palpable examples, obviously in comedy, you're looking for your antics to pick up some laughter from the audience. But oftentimes in serious moments, for instance, Colline in Bohème, one of my favorite things is when I get to the end of Vecchia Cimara, and I know that I've connected with the audience because it's just dead silent for a moment before anybody dares to clap. So there is an energy. There's a dare I call it a vibe that we get on stage from the audience.